Two Wheels this week, we ride the latest version of Yamaha's R1. Jeff Stone reports on a new type of biking holiday in the south of France. Sara Dee is out and about meeting the bikers. There's more from Wayne's Warehouse, and Gary Thomson continues the rebuild of his crash-damaged Honda Blackbird. Back in the 1980s, if you wanted to ride the top sports bike, you'd have needed to own a Yamaha FZR 1000 X-Up. But the X-Up ruled only until 1992, when Honda released their now world-famous CBR 900, the Fireblade. The blade broke the mould for sports bikes. Huge amounts of power with handling to match. Poor old Yamaha had no answer to this, but in '96 they launched the Thunder Ace. And although it had massive power, it never really cut the mustard in the looks or the handling department. And today, it's become known more as a sports tourer. So the Blade lived on. But all that was about to change in 1998, because then came Yamaha's YZF R1, a sports bike with sharp styling, fantastic handling and superb braking to cope with its 150 brake horsepower. The R1 has sold in huge numbers, and today it just gets better and better. The latest 2001 model has had more than 150 changes made to it. Many of these are minor ones, perhaps a few nuts, bolts and washers here and there, but some have been quite significant. Big changes have taken place in the gearbox. The early models, although great fun, did have a tendency to send the front wheel skywards in first and second gear. The gearing now has been changed. First and second gears are now longer in an attempt to keep the front end down and to make the bike more rideable. Thankfully though, it hasn't taken away any of the fun, and thrashing an R1 still produces a huge grin factor. Now, if you're very observant, you may have noticed that this particular machine that I'm riding is not the 2001 model, it's the 2000 model. Well, how do you know the difference? Well, it's dead easy. Certainly with the red example, it's dead easy to tell, because the 2001 model that you can buy today in the showroom has got a carbon front fender. This one hasn't. It's got the red plastic sort of colour matched one. There's a carbon front fender on the 2001. Also on the latest model, the graphic on the side here is slightly different. Only slightly. You can notice it more on the tank actually, on this bit here. If you look at the 2001, this little transfer here is a bit more fancy. It's got bits of black in it. But really, that's the only changes between last year's and this year's model. As I said before, loads of changes, massive amount of changes to the R1 since it first came out back in '98. I've already mentioned the gearbox, that's different, sort of a bit more rideable. But there are some obvious changes. The shape is slightly different. It's kind of still the same sort of thing really, but it is slightly different. The fairing that has been revised, that's the word they like to use these days, and Yamaha like to say that the fairing now is slippier. It's a slippier bike. What on earth does that mean? Well, what they actually mean is it's actually more aerodynamic. It's got a better drag coefficient and all technical things like that. Don't understand it myself, but slightly different shape, but still looks dead smart. Engine more or less the same, loads and loads of changes, as I say, different nuts, bolts, washers, all that, like I said before, but more or less the same sort of thing. 150 brake horsepower that thing develops there, inline 4-cylinder. Very, very short, the engine on the R1, and that's really the key to its success, its handling. Very, very short. We've also got magnesium engine covers now, which help to save weight, down to just over 170 kilos with this, which puts it in the same ballpark as a 600cc bike, more or less. So astonishing power to weight ratio, but very, very short engine, which means we've got a very, very long swing arm, massive long swing arm. Pivot point is right up there, right on the back of the engine, very, very far forward. All heavily braced GP style swing arm, that's what they call these now. This nice fancy little hugger on the back to stop all the muck going under your seat. Suspension, that's been, well, I was going to say changed. It's not been changed, it's the same sort of thing really, but it's been revised. The settings are now different, and the whole thing feels better, it handles better. And that's what they've tried to do with this. They've tried to make the bike a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit easier to ride, if you like. But what they've not done, and I think what Honda, in many people's eyes, have been guilty of over the years, they've killed off the Fireblade a little bit. They've made it very, very tame, very, very user-friendly, and kind of killed it, taken the edge off it. The early Fireblades, you'll remember, they were an animal. You couldn't ride them, they were all over the place, but they were great fun. They've tried to do a little bit of that with the R1, but I'm glad to say they've kept loads of the fun and in no way have they killed any of the excitement out of the R1. This bike can be as mad as you like, but remember the throttle works both ways. It's quite happy to plod through a village at 30 miles an hour. I'll agree, not much fun on a 1000cc superbike, but nevertheless, it can be done. It's out on the road though that the R1 really comes into its own. Massive amounts of power with a tremendous rush from around about 8,000 all the way to the red line at just below 12,000. Sharp handling, fantastic brakes and the flickiest machine you could ever wish for. Well, if all that's tickled your fancy and you would like to purchase one of these, it will cost you £8,800. That's the list price. But forget list prices, because today it's very difficult for any dealer to sell a bike at the list price, and I think it's fair to say that you could probably take one of these brand new out of a showroom for just over 7 grand. 7 grand for all that performance, all that style and huge amounts of street cred.
They built the aircraft engine for the Red Baron. They've got 80 years of engineering experience behind them, and it's claimed that 50% of all the bikes they've ever built are still on the road today. The people that love these machines have been meeting for years. And today, here in Malvern, Worcestershire, in the Three Counties Showground, they're celebrating their 50th anniversary. We are, of course, talking about the Bayerische Motorenwerk, BMW to you and I. Well, it's about time we met some of the characters that love these machines, but one little word, don't mention the war. Tony, it's nice to meet you. You're the organiser of this weekend. So why have you done this event, and how often does it happen, and what happens when you're here?
Well, this is a one-off. This is the BMW Club's 50th anniversary today, or this weekend. So this weekend is totally dedicated to our club's 50th anniversary. It is a one-off, and we've attracted lots of people on site this weekend to celebrate the event.
My goodness, I can see a lot of tents behind me, so do a lot of people come and stay here for this?
They do. Actually, we've got about 600 people camping on site. We also have about 200 plus people in accommodation in Malvern, and we're expecting day visitors tomorrow, so should have well over 1,000 people on site during the weekend.
So when you're not organising a huge event like this,
Yes.
What does the club get up to?
Well, the club's a very diverse group, and we have 15 national autonomous sections throughout the UK for the BMW Club, and each one is autonomous. They have their own calendars of events, social runs, dinners, touring events, and we're part of the national club of the UK. So there's something somewhere for everyone every weekend of the year going on.
I can't believe this. I've found the founder member of this club, and his name is Charlie Locke. How did it all start?
Well, quite by accident actually. In 1951 I was out for a ride on a pre-war BMW, and they were pretty rare in those days, and I happened to see at the side of the road 2 new BMW motorbikes, and this is something you don't see together. So I stopped naturally to talk to the owners. And one of them was a Dr. Roberts, who owned an establishment in Virginia Water where he ran a health club. The other was his secretary. So I said to them, why don't we join a club? Why don't we form a club? And they thought it was a good idea. Dr. Roberts offered his premises as our first club premises, and literally speaking, the club began then.
So are you still riding?
I am, of course, of course. Is there anything else for an 80-year-old to be doing when he's still
Of
under?
course, there certainly isn't. I've just noticed something. The beer tent is way over there, and the loos are way over there. Bit of a mistake if you ask me. Anyway, I'll see you later. I know which way I'm going.
Hi, I'm Malcolm Millington from Rosper, and this week we're going to discuss improving our braking techniques. It's a well-known fact that 20% of riders do not actually use the front brake in any circumstances whatsoever, including emergencies. In order to practice our braking techniques, we need to find a clear, straight stretch of road where the surface is good and no debris or other obstacles are in our way. We also need to make sure that whilst we're practicing these exercises, there is no possibility of interfering with other road users who are just normally going about their business. So what we do is we find a point where we're going to start our braking from. We approach it 30 miles an hour and we apply our rear brake. Mark up where we've actually stopped and go back and try again. When we're quite satisfied that we're stopping as quickly as possible without actually locking the rear wheel, we then repeat the exercise using the front brake. We have to be careful in pulling the front brake on. The pressure must be increased gradually, progressively and firmly. We must not snatch at the brake, otherwise we'll lock the front wheel and lose complete control of the machine. When we're satisfied that we're using the front brake on its own correctly, we then move over and we try the same techniques using both brakes, applying the front a fraction of a second before the rear. This maximises our braking potential, but this is also only on a dry road. We then need to adjust our braking for roads that are wet, slippy, roads that have got debris on them, loose chippings. This we do by reducing the pressure that we apply the front brake with and increasing the rear brake pressure. Braking is no substitute for observation and anticipation, which will be dealt with in a later programme.
Welcome to the south of France, the home of sand, sea and sunshine. Just look at it. And it's also the home of some nice chateaux like this one. But another thing it's got is some absolutely fabulous roads. Now you just think, if you could ride the bike of your dreams on those roads, wouldn't that be something else? Wouldn't that be a real bit of escapism? Well, come with me and I'll show you how you can. And how about this for a range of bikes? Yamaha's Fazer, Suzuki's GSX-R Thou. What about Ducati's new ST4 Monster, the one with the 916 engine? ZX12 Quacker? What about Aprilia's RSVR? Or you might favour Ducati's 996. Then an R6, a nice nimble sports bike. Or an MV Agusta, of course. I can see you actually spluttering over that one. Triumph Bonneville, nice bike if you're into cruising. If you're into even more cruising, how about the Harley Fat Boy? If you want a mega cruiser, how about the Valkyrie, Honda's Big Flat 6? So what's all this collection about? Well, let's go and ask the man behind it, Ollie Duke, the infamous bike journalist.
The idea of Great Escape Tours, as you say, it's escapism, and we hope from the moment if you fly down, from the moment you arrive at the airport to the moment you return back to the airport in England, you become a sheep. Yeah. Like a bike journalist. And bike journalists go on launches, yeah, and they're shepherded wherever they go, and they stay in luxury accommodation and they ride the world's best bikes, and that's what people who come out here should be doing. Our typical route is about 200 to 250 miles in a day, and while that might not sound a lot to a lot of people, in actual fact, because the roads are so twisty and you need so much concentration, by the end of the day most people are quite glad to get off the bike. We have about 6 or 7 routes. Some go down towards the Pyrenees, some go into the Pyrenees, most go up north into the Languedoc Hills, which are just superb because there's no traffic.
What sort of people typically are attracted to a tour like this?
We've had a whole range of types of people, from Virgin limo bike riders to airline pilots, so really anybody who can afford to come on the tours come. But having said that, obviously it tends to be people in the higher income bracket, because you can't come on the tour and live on the dole because there's no way you'll be able to pay for it. The cheapest way is to come down here for a long weekend, which means arriving on a Friday, leaving on a Monday and riding Friday, Saturday. And for that, if you come down under your own steam, you pay £625, and you don't stay here, you stay at the Pressoir Hotel where you're staying.
Yeah, which is a very nice one.
Very pleasant hotel.
Yeah.
And so that's the cheap end of the package. The expensive end of the package is to come out here, to fly out here, to stay in the chateau here, and to ride for 4 days during a week's holiday.
Yeah, and what's that one work?
And that costs out £14.95.
Yeah, £1,495.
That's right, yes.
You get it, folks. Still,
yes.
I mean, it is a unique experience. Yeah. And how's it structured as far as the actual bikes go? If you come for a weekend, you can't ride your 14 bikes in a weekend, can
Yes, you can, yes.
Oh, you can?
Oh, you can ride whatever you want.
Right.
If there are enough people out here, we'll just take all the bikes out, and you can ride whatever you want as and when you want.
Ah, okay. So
So-
really, the more the merrier in a way.
Absolutely.
If you get a full tour, then yeah, 14 people on it. That's probably the best, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then everyone goes out and we stop for coffee and people will swap bikes and we'll stop for lunch and they'll swap again, and that works very, very well.
Now I've pulled in here because I've got another guy to see, and that's Martin Child, who's the other half of the dynamic duo. And I've got a feeling that was him.
Well, Jeff does manage to catch up with Martin, and we'll join them for more from the south of France in a little while.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Welcome back to Malvern. Wish they'd put that beer tent a bit closer. Anyway, back off to the marquee, meet some new people. Where have you come from today?
Carlisle.
Carlisle?
Yeah.
My goodness, that's quite a way, isn't it?
Don't ask me the distance, I just sit in the back of the bike and go where they take me. I do.
Now, what is it I'm supposed to call you? You've got a nickname, haven't you? Is your vice-ship, is it?
Oh yes, I'm a vice chairman of the club, so I'm usually addressed as your vice ship.
Now I've heard that you're rather a traveller on your BMW bike, so where have you been?
Oh, all over the place. Sort of did a circumnavigation of the Mediterranean 5 years ago through Libya, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, that kind of thing. Last year, rode to Pakistan and back. Took 6 weeks off work and just went for it. Rode up through, well, down through Europe, Turkey, Pakistan, back.
And how long do you take out for these trips?
That was 6 weeks, that one. I've got an understanding boss who's Californian and very, very impressed.
Well, you can't say better than that.
Not
That's
really.
excellent. What sort of bike have you got then? Or have you got more than one?
I've got just the three, actually. There's the 15-year-old enduro bike, the GS, which is the intercontinental tourer, because you don't know when the road's going to just disappear, so you need something you can ride off-road. I've just bought one of the new 1150 RTs, R1150 RTs. I've had to buy a stronger toothbrush. And I've got my trusty old R80 RT, which I'm sort of just about finishing rebuilding. That's the one I rode to North Africa that first trip. So that's an old friend. And the travelling engine tends to get shifted from bike to bike, and that's done 175,000 miles now. It's been everywhere, that engine.
Ah, there you are. You're looking at this, the R75 RS. Isn't it beautiful? Absolutely immaculate. Well, we'll be finding some more bikes like this here in Malvern a little later on. See you then.
Plastic covered bikes, they're covering up something. Naked bikes, they're not. And what is that thing? It's the engine, of course. And in those engines, we've got single overhead cam, 4 cylinders, double overhead cam, all sorts of configurations. But what does that all mean? Come with me in this week's Tech Talk and I'll tell you all about it. Okay, well, I'm going to demonstrate it on this old CB754 engine down here, going back a few years now, but it does to serve its purpose. I'll take this rocker cover off, previously loosened, and under there, amongst all this oil, just look at these hands, there's a camshaft running down the middle. So this one is a single overhead camshaft. If it was double overhead camshaft, you get another one. This is a camshaft. In fact, this is exactly the same as that centre one, but you get one here and one there operating direct on the valves. But first, back to this one. So you've got a camshaft running down the middle, and here's the cams themselves. These are a little bit rusty because it's been in store, but they operate on the heels of these things which are called rockers. See them here? And as you move them, you hear them tapping. So guess what they're called? Tappets. So if someone says your tappets are rattling, that's what it is. They need adjusting. I've got a rocker assembly here because these just bolt onto the head, and you can see the rockers themselves, and you can see why they're called rockers. Cam lifts that bit, presses down that bit, opens the valves, but we'll come to valves in a while. While we're on the camshaft, driving the camshaft is the timing chain that runs round there, down into the bowels of the engine onto the crankshaft, because the camshaft has got to open the valves at the right time for when the pistons come up, and if you get those out of sync, you're in real serious trouble. So if something else you'll hear people say, that sounds like timing chain rattle to me, that means that that timing chain is a bit loose or a bit worn, or the cam chain tensioner is faulty, and so it's slapping that bounce a bit. That can be a very expensive job because, as you can see, it's buried inside the engine. So, valves, we said. What have we got? Well, I've got a nice little range for you here. First off, we'll start off this one. This is a 2-valve head. And as you can see, there's actually 8 in there, but by 2 valve heads, we mean 2 valves per cylinder. So there they are, stuck in the cylinder head. If we turn this one over, we can actually see it's got its two camshafts still in. So this is that double overhead camshaft I spoke about. Remember, there was the old single one. This is two. They're operating directly on the valves. And see what they save? They save having this rocker assembly. So they lose a lot of the reciprocating weight, as it's called, and speed up the whole valve train, and you actually lose a lot of that mass flying around. So let's just turn that one over. A hose clip drops off. Here we come to a 4-valve head. You'll hear this term a lot because if sports bikes are worth calling a sports bike, they're going to have 4-valve heads, like cars have these days. Sometimes you hear them 16 valves, because there we have 4, 4, 4, 4, 16. Turn this one over, but before I do, what I should have said on that one, you always find that the inlet valves are bigger than the exhaust valves. That's because it's more important to actually, when you're actually sucking something in, like the petrol air mixture, than actually pushing it out with the piston. So the inlet valves are always bigger than the exhaust valves. Turn that over. On this one, this hasn't got the camshafts in. It would have been a double overhead camshaft, or rather it is. If we put a camshaft in here, running in those bearings, see where it's positioned there? It'd operate down on these bucket tappets, as they're called there. They're just like mini pistons that operate direct on the valves. So again, you've saved all that reciprocating mass. Turn that one over. And finally, coming to this one. This is a Yamaha head, and in fact this is a 5-valve job. See here, the inlet valves aren't actually bigger, but there's more of them. There's 3 inlet valves and 2 exhaust valves, but the same reason. You want to get the maximum mixture in. So if you can see that, you're not going to get any more valves in that area. Not much point turning this over because the cams are in, double overhead cams there, but they're operating those through bucket tappets again. But what you're going to get there is maximum efficiency, maximum gas into the cylinders, and maximum evacuation. So this is it. For ultimate efficiency, the more valves, the better.
Yamaha's YZF Thundercat, the 600 Thundercat, been around now since 1996, and I suppose really it was the predecessor to the now very famous and well-respected R6. When it came out, it looked quite sort of fancy, quite futuristic. I always remember looking at the front end when it came out and thinking, wow, this looks good. It looks very space age, very Star Trek-y, doesn't it, that? But I suppose by today's standards, it's old hat now. Everything looks the same, doesn't it? It never really set the world on fire when it came out, and I don't know why. It's not the best-selling 600 in the world by any means, not by a long way. But having owned one of these for some years, I can tell you, I think it's probably the most comfortable 600 on the road, and I mean the most comfortable. Fantastic dual seat on it. You could sit on it all day long, you know, you could tour on it, you can do anything. It really is a fantastic bike, a bike for all sorts of different uses. This particular one, second-hand here, R registered, so this will be, what, 1997, I suppose. R registered, just over £4,000. Very, very tidy, very smart in this silver and yellow colour scheme. They also did them in red and white. They did an orange and black one as well. I think they still do an orange and black one. But of course, buying second-hand, you get a few extras. Data tool alarm on this one, so that'll save you a few quid. It's got polished rims. Look at this here. Someone spent a bit of time with this, haven't they? Had that done. So that probably cost a few pounds. There's little flush indicators here. Don't think I like them, to be honest with you, but all the same, they are non-standard. But it's a very, very tidy looking bike, and as I say, speaking from experience, I could sit on this all day. I could go a long, long way on one of these. And if you don't believe what I say, well, here's what one lady biker had to say about her Thundercat.
Thundercat, fantastic bike. I had one for 2.5 years. The power was there, the brakes were stonking. It toured really well 2-up. Power was there just when you needed it, had a brilliant motor. Most comfortable bike I've owned. And very reluctantly got rid of it this just a couple of months ago because I got a ridiculous insurance quote. Couldn't find one reasonable, otherwise I'd still have it now.
Well, ditto to everything that lady biker said. Now, why am I stood by these Fazers when we're talking about Thundercats? Well, I'll tell you why, because it's the same bike, really. Well, same but different, if you like. It's the same engine in a Fazer as you get in a Thundercat. Obviously, different shape, different frame, different styling, different feel to the way it actually handles and everything. But mechanically, that down there, that lump, is a Thundercat engine, so it will perform just the same as a Thundercat. Now, the Fazer came out in 1998, and you can take your pick. You can have this nice gold-coloured one here. Not sure that I like that. Or what about a black one? They do them in red as well. I think they do them in blue even. came out in 1998, as I say. Both of these are T-registered examples, and both of these will cost you £3,800. So I suppose with a little bit of bartering, you might get your hands on one of these from a dealer for around about £3,500. So there you have it, Fazers, Thundercats, mechanically the same, different feel. Your Thundercat's your more sporty version, the Fazer like this, your more upright, sort of street bike, semi-naked type thing, more aggressive looks. You take your pick.
Helmets. Well, we've decided to do helmets first of all for a simple reason, is that on the top of your head and they are compulsory. You have to wear them, and if you've got any sense about you, you'd choose to wear one anyway, for no other reason but to keep your ears warm in the winter. There are loads of different types of helmets at loads of different prices, from around 30 quid right the way up to several £100s, depending on your pocket, how deep it is. It is worth spending as much money as you can afford. You do get what you pay for. If not for in case of an incident when you fall off, certainly a quieter helmet, a more comfortable helmet with a fancy paint job will obviously cost you more than a horrible fit helmet that isn't so comfortable. Simple innit? Types of helmets, there are loads. Open face helmets such as this, with a visor like that. Motocross helmets such as this, like that. Washable liners, keeps it nice and tidy when you get dirty and grotty, and very posy. Even flip up front type helmets such as this nowadays, where you press a button and up comes the front like that. And you can even make this one into a third style helmet, so you've got a full face, a lift up front, and you can actually now put a peak on the front of it by removing this and have a visor on it, so it's 3 styles of helmets all in one. Very clever. But the most traditional and the most common and the most regularly bought helmet would indeed be your regular full face helmet, just like that. The fit is the main factor. Once you've established the area of sizing you are, medium, small, whatever you are, you try them on, and one will suit you better than others, and that is a very, very important thing. Try loads. Spend hours and try loads. An essential thing when you're buying your crash helmet is that it is in fact approved. There are 2 approvals, one of the past and one of the present. The past approval was when you saw a BSI badge on the back of the helmet. That's the blue badge in this case on here, and it has numbers on it representing the BSI approval. In this case, 6658 Type A. And sometimes you can get them with a gold ACU badge, which allows you to go racing with it. But since this year, you now can buy a helmet that is Euro approved, and the badging's slightly different. You can still get the crash helmet with its racing approval badge, but you've got to look for a label, in this case sewn on the inside, and that'll then indicate ECE approval, and it's 2205. It's got to have the last bit, the 05. There are some crash helmets knocking around that have actually got 04 approval in it. That isn't acceptable. This is the highest level, and you've got to meet that criteria. Now, sort of a sore subject with us all at the moment, and that is black visors, dark visors, so you can at least see where you're going on those bright sunny days. Well, it's illegal to wear one. We all know this, but there is a way around it, and that is by buying one of these, the Laser Revolution helmet. Now, apart from the fact that it's a lift up front helmet and it's got lots of features, there is one unique thing about it, and that is this, a black visor that is built into it. And that helmet is E approved. You can wear it legally with or without the internal black visor. So that gets you around the law, and you can still see where you're going. So, to try and summarise, to make your buying of a crash helmet nice and easy, first of all, spend as much money as you can afford, and maybe add to it, because it's the most crucial part of your biking kit, the crash helmet. It's like buying an insurance policy. You one day may need it. You hope, keep your legs, fingers crossed that you never do, but you never know, it might happen. The helmet may indeed get put into practice, and you'll come away with a headache rather than a major injury. And that's why it's worth every penny of spending good hard earned on a crash helmet. Now then, all I've got to do is choose which one I fancy. I suppose I could try them all.
Right, Martin, I've got you sitting down and not on a bike on a pile of stones. I know it's not logs, but these will do, won't they? But first off, hot today. Is it always like this?
Sometimes it's a bit warmer, but it's just lovely temperatures to be out in the outside riding a bike.
Come on, we both got moisture. Or call it sweat dripping off us left, right and centre.
Yeah, but whenever you do all the best things in life, you're always fitting, aren't you? So.
True, true. Anyway, I've had a great time while I've been here, but I've been very privileged because I'm not actually on the holiday, I'm just sampling the bikes, as it were. But I've had 7 out of your, what is it, 14 bikes?
14, yeah.
When you get people coming on the tour, what do their eyes light up at? What do they want to do? What's the first bike?
Well, I think most people who book just want to ride an MB Augusta.
Yeah.
It's such a rare and privileged thing to actually get on it and see what it's like, see whether the hype is justified or not. But when people open the doors of the garage and there's 14 gleaming superbikes and cruisers there, people I just really think get turned on by the fact that they can go on any of the bikes. They don't have to worry about different insurance for different bikes, no tyre wear, no fuel. It's just, you know, there you go, there's a key, go and enjoy yourself. So I think that's a major draw.
And after you sort of set them out a route and say, well, this is where we're going, or here's a route, and we'll meet up at lunchtime or whatever, because that's basically the scheme of things, isn't it? You give them a route, but they're not one-to-one escorted.
It's not one-to-one escort, but we will go around in a group as such, yeah, but it can be spread out. So
can people change during the day if they start off on the MV and think, oh, I don't like this?
Yeah, no problem whatsoever.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously, when the tours are full, we have to obviously make sure that everybody's happy doing that, but there's never a problem. Everybody likes changing and chopping and changing, and you know, it just makes it more interesting.
Have people sort of mellowed by the end of it? Are they down to, I'm not being derogatory about the Bonneville, but I think, oh, Bonneville's pretty cool here.
Well, they've mellowed in the bikes they choose, and they've mellowed in the riding as well, because at the end of a week-long tour where you're doing 200 miles a day, it's more than most people will do.
And fantastic, these roads.
Yeah, so things like the Fazers, the Bonnevilles, the cruisers, by sort of Thursday or Friday, people are actually fighting over those rather than the MV and the 996, which is more extreme and obviously harder, you know, a bit more effort to ride it.
Yeah. And so when you're with these groups, I've got to ask you this, do you go hooning around with them, do you? Or
No, I mean, we do tend to let people ride at whatever pace they want to ride.
Yeah.
And I think that the mixture of foreign roads, unusual territory and unusual bikes tends to cap people, so they're probably not as mad as they would be on their own bike in their own back garden. But, you know, it's a lovely place out here, and we're very easygoing how you can ride. I mean, obviously, if people are going to be a danger to themselves, somebody else would have to then step in. But so far, that hasn't happened. Everybody's enjoyed riding how they want to ride.
So, stunting around in front of your public then, isn't
well, you know,
well, not your customers, let's say, or unless they twist your arm.
Well, I guess so, yeah, you know.
But you're
I perform for bananas, you know it is.
Are you now Captain Sensible?
No, not at all. I haven't come down here to retire. I've come down here to basically ride bikes in the best area that I've ever found in the world to ride. You know, it's just a freedom place.
And there'll be more from Jeff in the south of France next week. Time now for some more biker chats, and this week we asked a group of bikers if they could change one law relating to biking, which would it be?
I would change the law, because the way the law is going now with speeding, it's getting over the top. Basically, speeding fines, speeding cameras, fair enough in villages, stick to the law. On the open road where it's safe, should be at an open speed limit. And that's talking from experience, I'm sorry.
I'd like to change the law on dark visors. I think they'd save more people from having accidents, especially in the winter, when the sun's very low in the sky.
After having returned to biking recently, I think the law that I'd have to change, or it might take a number of laws to change it, would be a tightening up of the general rules about bikers being able to return from passing the test a number of years ago from a ride around the block with an examiner who stops you in a skid usually, and basically, yes, here's your pass certificate. I mean, everything else is tightened up in the period that I've been away, which is probably about 17 years, and basically I was able to jump back on a 900cc motorbike and ride off without any instruction whatsoever.
The laws that I don't really like at the moment are the visor law, because, you know, I think people should credit us with a bit more brains, and, you know, we know when to take dark visors off. If you can't see, you don't want to be having an accident yourself, so you put a clear one on, you know what I mean? So that'd be great. Or being able to go in bus lanes.
Welcome back to Malvern, the BMW Bikers Meet. And look, I found a 1956 R50. It's gorgeous, isn't it? Hey guys, I've just noticed. You don't mind me having a chat, do you? What's the problem?
Coil's broken.
Oh no!
It's cracked.
Absolutely,
so
gosh.
It's packed up on us.
Oh.
So we're doing a quick repair job.
How far away from home are you?
Not too far, we live in Gloucester.
Oh, that's not too bad then.
So it made it here, but
yeah. You're not sure about getting it back?
Well, we wouldn't get back on that.
No.
We had to push it through the gate.
Aren't you staying for the whole weekend?
Yes. Yeah, so we've got today to fix it, and the battery's going on charge. So that's... we managed to find a couple of coils to fit on.
You have?
Yes. One of the guys on the stands had some old coils.
Excellent.
So we'll do a repair job and hopefully get underway again.
Oh, crikey. Well, wish you the best of luck.
Thanks
I'm
very
sure
much.
it'll be fine. Now, I've heard through the grapevine that you've just come back from another biker meet somewhere quite exotic. Where have you been?
We've been to Estonia. There was an FIM Motorcamp meeting in Estonia, and there were 250 of us or thereabouts in Estonia, and we've come here straight from there.
Straight from there?
Straight from there. There's quite a few people who've come straight from there. We arrived yesterday. We took the ferry to Rostock and then rode the rest of the way because it's around 1,500 miles.
I was about to ask you that. It's a long way, isn't it? 1,500 miles.
Yeah, we rode all the way out, so we've done 3,000 miles in a couple of weeks.
Hi guys, can I muscle in?
Yeah, of course you can.
Where have you come from?
We've come from Kent, Sussex.
Oh really?
Mm.
Aha, that's excellent. Have you got a cup of tea for me? No?
If you like to wait while I make it, while I put the kettle back on, you're very welcome.
No, it's all right. I can't put you
but
to
you
that
have to
much
bring your
trouble.
own cup.
I do?
Oh, yeah.
God!
Yeah.
I'm just not prepared.
Well, you wouldn't want to share one of our cups, not after we've been drinking out of it all
I
weekend.
don't know. A sip of your tea would be fine. Can I have a sip of your tea? Because I'm running out of blood sugar.
Can I hold your
Yeah, if you like. Thank you very much. Has it got sugar in this?
Certainly not.
It hasn't.
No, when you get to mine...
This is going to have lipstick on. Shall I use the other side?
As long as the wife
Well,
won't
doesn't
talk about
question
it.
these,
Yeah.
does it?
I'll wash it off
It's
before
not
I
your
take it
colour
home.
really, no.
No, not really.
No.
No, when you get to mine, you won't be able to afford to take sugar because you put too much weight on.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I don't
Yeah.
believe that. Look,
Yeah.
it's all greasy now.
See, the wrong motorbike to
run sugar. Are you enjoying the weekend?
Marvellous. Yeah,
Yeah?
we've been over to Wales today.
Really?
Mm.
As well?
Mm.
Crikey.
How far? Where did we go? Just across the border, wasn't it?
Yeah,
over
just
towards
over the
Abergavenny.
Black Mountains.
Yeah.
Abergavenny and up to Hay.
up through Brecon. It was
Connor Pass, Gospel Pass.
Gospel. Yeah, it's been good. Rained all the time.
Did it?
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
it's
good stuff. I
Malvern
mean,
water,
I
isn't
bought
it?
a new jacket last
Right.
Friday, so I've had a chance to check it out, and it didn't leak.
Well, it's time to say goodbye from Malvern here in Worcestershire. It's been raining, it's stopped raining, and it's raining again, but everybody is still smiling. And they've invited me back in another 50 years' time. So I'll see you then. Oh, careful of the guy ropes.
And if you were watching Two Wheels last week, you'll probably remember that I've actually bought myself a bike. £2,300 I paid for it. Well, the good news is I got a bit of an extra deal going as well. I noticed as we were loading it into the van that the front wheel was bent. So I've got myself a front wheel, I've got myself a front set of forks. So what I'm going to do is I'll put these down on the bench, get rid of them because it's getting a bit heavy. As you can see, we've actually got the bike on the bench. It was a bit of a struggle, but at the end of the day, it's there. Now these benches, they're going to cost you about £450, but believe you me, they're well worth it. You can get the bike up in the air, you can see all the way around it. Even if you can't afford a bench, what you need to do is get the kitchen table out. Put the bike on the kitchen table, that makes life a lot easier. Another thing that you'll also need is a decent toolkit. Make sure you've got all the tools to do the job. There's nothing worse than starting the job and then finding out you've not got the correct tool. Right then, what we need to do is get rid of these panels, the panels that we're not going to actually use. So first thing off, I have loosened most of the panels off. Let's get rid of this grab rail. As you can see, there's a scratch on it. We don't need that. The seat, I'm going to clean up. There's a bit of writing on it, so I'll put that there. Doesn't get any further damage on it. This back panel, slide it off from the back, unhook it. We don't need that either. What I'm going to have to do is I think I'll let the ramp down a little bit. We'll remove the fuel tank. Lift it up at the back, slide it forward, everything else will fall off. There's actually some fuel in this, so let's be a bit careful we won't throw this one. Put that down there nice and safe. Right, I think we can actually jack it up. So here we go, let's get pumping this. We need to get it up to a nice workable height where we're not bending over, we're not damaging the back, so hold on, here we go, let's get it up. So handy these, you can have it at one level 1 minute, a few pumps on the old paddle, and you're right up in the air, you can get at it. Let's go around the other side now. As I said before, I have loosened most of the bolts, etc, etc, so we'll just whiz these out. That's that one gone. That can go over there. All these bolts will come out. We'll just put them on the bench for the time being. What we will do shortly is find a nice box to put all these bits and pieces in. This centre panel looks okay because we're going to keep that. I'll put that on the bench over here, out of the way. Remove all these side pieces. These with a little bit of blacking on them, they'll come up a treat. So let's get rid of all those. They can go on the bench with all the stuff that we're going to keep. Let's take the other ones off. Nice and easy. We're keeping those. That's good. We need to get at the speedo now, so what we're going to do is let the bench down because I think we've got everything off at that level. Next job then is to get rid of the clocks. We're going to have to replace the fascia on those. I'll keep these on the bench for the time being. Put the nuts and bolts in there. As I mentioned last week, this subframe is damaged, but it may repair. So if we remove the bolts there and there, like that, put them in the tray. We'll also remove the oil cooler bolts. 1, 2, and we should be able now to lift the entire front subframe away from the bike. Okay, now we've got all the parts stripped off. We've jacked the bench up. We're going to have a look at these forks. Obviously, massive big crease in it there, but I'm not too worried. We've got a set of forks in the deal for the £2,350. Front brake lines, now these are just bent. There's no kinks in them, so maybe we'll get away with straightening those. Front wheel, obviously no good. We need to replace that. Again, we've got that in with the deal. Let's go on to the chassis. Just a quick look round here, everything seems to be okay. Onto the chassis, we're looking for obvious signs, dents, scratches, whatever. There's a couple of marks on it. I don't think those are going to be a problem. There's a little mark there that you will see, but we've got a little sticky carbon fibre pad. That'll look quite smart on there. No worries at all. Obviously, this is broken. The actual pedal itself and the footrest, they're okay. Once we've stripped that down, there we go, replacement. No problems at all. Got that thrown in as well. Onto the exhaust. There's a couple of little scratches on the exhaust on this side. Not too bothered. A little bit of metal polish. We'll get rid of that and get rid of that. Looking at the subframe, everything seems to be intact. That doesn't seem to have taken any of the accident damage. That's fine. I think it's time to make a parts list. So as you can see, we've already done the list, but we'll go through that in more detail next week.
And there'll be more Better Bikes with Gary on Two Wheels next week. Also on next week's show, there'll be more tech talk, more from Wayne's Warehouse, and once again Sara Dee will be out and about meeting the bikers.